Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Decoding the Unknown. As always, I'm your host Simon. Welcome. What happens here is one of my fantastic writers, in this case Kevin, has put me together a script. I'm going to read it. I've never read it before. The title of the script right here is There's Bit Flips, which it's going to need some work because that's not very clickable. Maybe after I've read this and I have some idea about what this is about, we'll come up with a much better title, which is what you've clicked on. So right now, you know more than me about this video, which is kind of an interesting place to be. Let's just jump into it. If it hasn't been made abundantly clear by many of the personal anecdotes in these scripts, I'm a bit of a nerd.
Nerd alert.
Kevin has done all of the internet ones, like the Pig Floyd one, was that the Publius Enigma, or was that another thing? But all of the online culture ones have been written by Kevin, so we knew. Me too. To that end, something I'm immensely interested in is video game speedrunning. Oh my god, this is an old video, but I didn't really, I'm not into like modern speedrunning, any of that stuff, but I was blown away. It was a guy playing Quake, and he speedrun Quake. And one of the ways and it's like they complete the levels in seconds sometimes. And one of the ways that they cheat, or not cheat, but speedrun, is he was using the rocket launcher to jump. So he'd fire the rocket launcher down towards the ground, directly below him. It would destroy like most of his health, but it would push him up into the air so high that he could jump into parts of the game where he wasn't supposed to be and just complete the levels like that. And the health didn't matter because he was like, I'm not shooting enemies, I'm just getting to the exit as quickly as possible. And I was like, okay, I get it. That's kind of cool. I don't partake myself as I simply don't have the time required to be good enough to become competitive in any way, but I still find it fascinating. The only speedrun I learned is less a test of skill and more a party trick, assuming you attend incredibly boring parties that also happen to have an original NES console, as the trick does not work on later iterations of the game because of the memory being utilized differently. My one speedrun is the wrong warp for Super Mario Bros. 3. A way to beat the game in under 4 minutes. The simple explanation is that you warp to a specific level of the game and then place a few turtle shells on specific pixels in the level to place very specific values in the game's memory. By then hitting a normally inaccessible block on the level, it will access the memory that you put those values in and warp you directly to Princess Peach at the end of the game. This is amazing. But the bigger question is, how the did someone work this out in the first place? Who is spending time doing that? It's a neat trick and it looks really impressive, especially to someone who has never seen it before, but it's easier than it sounds, and it took me only about 20 minutes to learn. 20 minutes to learn. An entire lifetime of whoever figured this out in the first place. If any of the shells are even 1 pixel off, or sometimes even a sub-pixel off, I didn't even know that sub-pixels were a thing. Apparently I'm not that much of a nerd. The trick will fail and your game will crash. It goes to show just how volatile the nature of digital data can be, where the tiniest change can have an extremely different outcome. In September of 2013, 2 Mario 64 speedrunners were casually chatting on stream while each running in the game, when one of them suddenly performed a seemingly impossible trick with huge implications for the game. Mario incredibly warped very high up in the level for apparently no reason at all. Something like this upwarp had never been seen before, not without very specific criteria that were not met in this case. I've played Super Mario. Or maybe, I played Mario Karts back in the day. That was the shizzle. But I've also played Super Mario. I don't know what warp means, though. To me, it's something that happens in Star Trek. This was such a big deal that one YouTuber put a $1,000 bounty for anyone who could replicate this glitch. If video games aren't your thing, don't worry, because this episode isn't about them. Oh, brilliant. I feel like I need to put that in the title because everyone else has clicked off. The answer behind the Mario 64 glitch was found, but I don't think the bounty was paid because it's not something that can be replicated. But what could this video game glitch have in common with a plane injuring 119 people before making an emergency landing in an election in which over 4,000 more votes were counted than existed on the ballots? What are we talking about? That's in the same paragraph, Kevin.
I'm lost.
What just changed? It's got to be something to do with computer glitches causing computer crashes and throwing elections, which now I like a video game, sure, interesting. But yeah, if you want to watch about video games, you should be watching Game Theory. Like this like real world linkage stuff. Now we're getting into it. What if I told you that not only did all of these events and many more have the same cause, but that cause was supernatural in origin? Then I wouldn't believe you, Kevin. That would certainly make for an interesting story, but this is Decoding the Unknown, where we don't cotton on to bull like ghosts or magic. No, the answer wasn't supernatural, but it was extraterrestrial. Okay. Cool your jets. Hold your horses. Extraterrestrial just means not of this earth. It doesn't mean aliens. It's not aliens, because yo. If it was aliens, you wouldn't be hearing about it for the first time on this podcast, would you? You'd have heard about it because you'd be like, oh, aliens came to Earth. No. Alpha particles and you. Everyone knows the stories about how comically oversized computers used to be when they were first created. Fortunately, scientists quickly realized that the way to make computers more powerful wasn't to make them larger, it was to make them smaller. Wait, is that really how it works? I mean, there are still massive computers. They just fit more... God, okay, I'm realizing I don't know what I'm talking about. But they're fitting more like... things? Circuits? I don't know. On like each piece of silicone or whatever, right? Isn't that the trick? So yes, it's making it smaller, but also if you do make it bigger, it also gets more powerful. Like if you get two powerful computers and put them side by side, it's bigger, but it's also twice the computing power. Right? I don't know what I'm talking about, so let's just move on. This was good, but in 1978, Intel noticed a problem. Intel's RAM chips were acting oddly, with some ones in the memory randomly switching to zeros with no immediately identifiable cause. After some research, they determined that the issue was coming from the ceramic casing of the chips. The casing was manufactured at a plant that was downwind from a uranium mill, and it had trace amounts of radiation inside. I'm going to spare you the most intense scientific details of how exactly this worked, because this isn't that sort of channel, and also host boy doesn't have the sort of brain power to be like, oh my god, I'd quickly get lost in all the science. The short version is that uranium atoms emit alpha particles, and computer components had become so small that a single alpha particle passing through at just the right angle could flip a bit in the RAM. Once this was identified, chip manufacturers became much more careful to avoid radioactive materials in their components or packaging. I know this sounds like good practice in general, but remember, this was extremely trace amounts of radiation. A chip casing with a few atoms of uranium is not nearly enough to affect a big, strong human like you in any way. But thank you, Kevin. I am a big, strong human. But it was more than enough to make Intel's chips act a bit wonky. Is this the reason that there is that type of steel that's very much in demand? Because after the atomic bombs went off, all steel manufactured after that date, or iron or something, contains radiation. And pre-nuclear steel is used in, I mean, obviously, like for computers and stuff, it doesn't matter that much. But for like X-ray machines or this kind of things where radiation is detected, they need this, like, it's got a name, but like pre-nuclear steel or whatever. And it became more valuable. So they're like raising ships off the seafloor to take its steel and stuff. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. Even with companies doing their due diligence, these bit flips, referred to as soft errors, can still happen. They're called soft errors because while the data being processed was damaged, the system itself is fine. The bit can be deleted and rewritten without any problems, and everything should continue to act normally. If you've ever been on the receiving end of an impatient Irishman ask you, did you try turning it off and turning it on again? A soft error just may have been the cause. Why would it be an Irishman? Nor isn't tech support like, isn't the meme, the stereotype or whatever, that it's some dude in India telling you, did you try turning it off and turning it on again? And whenever I've been on, like, had this conversation, I'm always like, okay, I'll do it because I know you're waiting for me to do it. And honestly, sometimes it has actually worked. Most of the time it works. Like, my wife has some problem. Like, the internet stopped working at home, and she calls me, and I'm like, have you tried turning it off, the router, turning it off and turning it on again? And she's like, no. And I'm like, well, just turn it off and turn it on again. And she does that, and she calls me back 5 minutes later. It worked. And I'm like, of course it did. I feel like I should be, I should phone me and okay, look, I'm gonna dial into it over here. What I need you to do is turn it off and turn it on again, and then I'm going to do some really complicated shit on my computer, which you can thank me for later. And then I'll just sit there having a cup of coffee. She'll phone me back. Whatever you did, it works. And it was very challenging. I would like steak for dinner. I'd never do that, but it's tempting. But if companies were being diligent to ensure uranium in your hardware wasn't the cause of these bit flips, where were they coming from? One cause is noise, an unwanted disturbance in an electrical signal, but this is believed to represent the smallest cause. To find the largest cause of these soft errors, we're going to have to aim our sights towards the stars. I see where we're going. So the plane thing, what was the other example that was given? The election voting machine. Right? With the plane thing, obviously there's more radiation the higher up you go into the atmosphere. So is the radiation gonna go into a computer, the plane's computer thing, and start messing around with it? That's pretty crazy. They came from beyond space. Cosmic rays are high-energy atomic nuclei, predominantly helium and hydrogen nuclei, that have been stripped of their electrons, traveling the universe at nearly the speed of light. And they will your up. They are the primary cause of bit flips, and they can come from pretty much anywhere except for Earth. From our sun, from distant galaxies, these cosmic rays are everywhere, and they are constantly bombarding the Earth's magnetosphere. Once they reach the magnetosphere, they create a shower of subatomic particles that fall to Earth and risk causing soft errors in the world's electronics. I am once again going to omit most of the technical and scientific details, but if you prefer me to go into more detail when discussing topics of scientific nature, be sure to get in the comments and let me know. No, I like it being dumbed down appropriately for me, and I am in charge. An interesting aspect of these showers of subatomic particles is that most of them don't actually reach the ground because of all of that science stuff we didn't talk about. Okay, I'm just going to trust you, Kevin. Give me I don't need to know the science behind that. I just trust that the science is there. It's like, do I fully understand how a lot of the things that I use every day work? All the science behind them? Like, when I take a paracetamol, do I know how that works to get rid of a headache? No. Do I know it? Does it work? Yes. Is there a reason why? Yes. Okay, good. Done. Happy. What this means, however, is that the rate of soft errors caused by cosmic rays is drastically lower at sea level than it is elsewhere on the planet. Computers on top of mountains experience these errors at an order of magnitude higher, and a plane flying at an altitude may experience them 300 times as often as those at sea level. And yet, flying is still the safest way to travel, so what does that say about your driving? Oh my god. Yeah, this is the thing. I don't know. I'm not a nervous flyer. In fact, I'm learning to fly. In fact, I haven't taken a lesson in 2 months because I've been really busy and also COVID. But when that plane pushes back, you're like, and I know driving my car is more dangerous, but I'm still like, yeah, but we're basically in a pressurized cigar tube. And also with planes, if you have a car crash, it's like, okay, it's somewhat in my control and at least I'm on the ground. Whereas if that plane's crashing, it's like, you're fucked. I mean, you're not, because most plane crashes are survivable. But I'm talking those big plane crashes. Like when you're in the air and the captain's like, ladies and gentlemen, got some bad news. We've had a failure on both engines. We're going to try everything we could do to recover the vehicle, but we are not certain it'll be possible. You're like, that's it, stop praying. Because the magnetosphere protects us from the majority of cosmic rays, the dangers become even more prevalent for spacecraft, which have a very interesting workaround that may or may not have been stolen from Philip K. Dick. Wait. Isn't Philip K. Dick the guy who wrote Moby Dick? Or am I just making that up because they're both named Dick? They're not, are they? Philip K. Dick's a sci-fi writer of some variety. Who the wrote Moby Dick?
Herman Melville.
I'm so small brain. I've no evidence to support that it was, but I have none to refute that either, so I choose to believe the most interesting and perfectly plausible notion that NASA did steal his idea. I have no idea what you're talking about, Kevin. How did NASA steal Philip K. Dick's idea? So just how prevalent are these soft errors caused by cosmic rays? Well, very. In 1996, IBM estimated that for every 256 megabytes of RAM, you will have one bit flip every month on average. Oh, good lord. We've got a lot more RAM than that. A computer with 4 gigabytes of memory could have one every 3 days. The good news is that this means a lot of those blue screens of death that you used to get in Windows weren't your fault. The bad news is that a lot of them still were, so shame on you. Minority Report. Before we get to some of the most famous cases of cosmic rays interfering with electronics, I want to go back to NASA for a moment. Fear of software failure was a major concern for the space program. The last thing anyone wanted was for spaceship guidance system or some other controls to fail during flight and strand astronauts in space. In terms of terrifying deaths just spiraling off into the great unknown, just to eventually run out of air. And for your body to be captured by aliens, eons later, rotted inside your spacesuit. or just like end up in a sun, or just like float forever because space is really big. Fascinating speculation, Simon. Thank you. Let's carry on. While the workaround was decidedly before the discovery of cosmic rays affecting computer chips, this was also the Cold War era space race, so the government may well have already figured it out and just not made it public knowledge. It may also have been done out of an abundance of caution. Either way, the solution was to install 4 computers running identical software simultaneously, all communicating with each other to check results. In the event one of the computers gave a different answer, the other 3 would override it, similar to Philip K. Dick's 1956 novella Minority Report, except without all the telepathic mutants. Probably. Anyway, who knows? Oh, Philip K. Dick wrote Minority. I didn't even know that was based on a book. It's a good movie, though. Probably, anyway, who knows what's in Area 51. The original plan was to use 5 computers for maximum safety, but it was downgraded to 4 as being good enough. With 4 computers, if one suffered a catastrophic failure, there would still be 3 left to coordinate their efforts. A problem would not arise unless 2 computers completely broke down, leaving only 2 left. If that happened, it would result in a dreaded standoff, where in the event of a bit flip, the computers would know that one of them was wrong, but have no idea which one. Oh yeah, didn't think of that. By NASA's estimates, using the quadruple computer system, they only expected to lose 4 aircraft out of every 1 billion flights due to computer system failures, which I would agree is good enough, if accurate. Yeah, totally good enough. The system also allowed them to track the frequency of soft errors. I mentioned before that you are probably going to experience one soft error every 3 days or so, but in 1991, one shuttle experienced 161 separate soft errors on a 5-day mission. Yeah, because they're in space. Didn't we say like it was an order of magnitude bigger in space? Or was that just on a mountain or something? No, it was on a plane, right? So in space, it's got to be even more high. And government funding or not, I can guarantee you that in 1991, this ship was not equipped with 4 gigabytes of memory. Not everyone has the resources NASA does to run 4 computers simultaneously, however, so now let's get into what we came here for. Maximum carnage. Famous bit flips. Alright, fine. No one's going to die in this episode, but there's still some interesting stories. I'm kind of relieved. I actually recorded a Casual Criminalist before this, which was horrible. So I actually was going to record another Casual Criminalist today, and then I was like, nope. Had enough of that. I need something fun. And so I'm glad there's no death, Kevin. Thank you. First, there's the story of one 2003 Belgian election. In the municipality of Schaerbeek in Belgium, something unusual was discovered by an election official while tabulating the results. One of the candidates had more votes counted than were mathematically possible. The voting machines were set up in such a way the magnetic card was inserted into the machine, and the user would select their votes on screen. The votes were then saved both to the computer and to the magnetic card, and the magnetic cards were then dropped in a box at the election site as a means of redundancy. When the tallies came back and did not make sense, the next step was to do a recount. All of the magnetic cards were then fed into the machines to be counted, and all the results came back identical except for one. Maria Vindervogel had 4,096 fewer votes on the recount than the initial tally, and no, they were not using Dominion voting machines. For a municipality with a total population of around 130,000, that is a large swing of votes. It was also one of the first areas to report their initial results before the error was found, so she thought that something big was going to happen that night. Alas, it was just the universe f***ing with her hopes and dreams. A review of both the machines and the code found no errors. Belgium was making a push towards switching to entirely electronic voting, so making sure everything was as perfect as possible was their number one goal. Once no other errors were found, the number 4,096, which is 2 to the power of 12, was their biggest clue. It was determined that the false tally was the result of a single bit flip. Yeah, 4,096, one of those numbers that if you like 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, you'll get to 4,096, right? A much scarier story for those involved is that of Qantas Flight 72 from Singapore to Perth. Oh my god, yeah, like 4,000 votes matters. That's like with democracy. But if I would rather have that, or it happen on a plane that I'm on, or I'm not on, I'll be like, let's just keep it on the ground, shall we? Let's not do the plane. We mentioned earlier in the episode that the rate of these soft errors is much higher at higher altitudes. On October 7th, 2008, the plane made a pair of sudden, uncommanded pitch-down maneuvers. In layman's terms, the plane dove down 200 meters in 20 seconds against the pilot's wishes. The pilot took control of the aircraft manually and was able to steady the flight. Minutes later, he re-engaged the autopilot system, and it dove down another 120 meters, at which point the pilots decided to make an emergency landing after taking manual control for the remainder of the flight. 8 crew and 99 passengers suffered minor injuries, with 11 suffering serious injuries. Is that 200 meters in 20 seconds is not a particularly big drop? It must have been violent in some other way. That would be a completely normal rate of descent, or a slow rate of descent even, for a large plane, right? I'm trying to remember from my flying. That's not that much. Severe injuries include broken bones, lacerations, and spinal injuries, and 14 people had to be airlifted to Perth for hospitalization, something I doubt they were thrilled with given how they wound up there in the first place. An investigation found the problem to be located in the Air Data Inertial Reference Unit, a key system that supplies information such as altitude, angle of attack, and airspeed. A single bit flip caused the plane's altitude to be mislabeled as angle of attack. Alarms went off and warnings for both overspeed and stall displayed, something that obviously should not be possible, and the plane had pointed its nose down, thinking it was correcting for a stall. Thankfully, the pilots had been able to take control of the plane and nobody died, despite the high number of injuries. Here's a nice little sample of some of the damage to the plane after everyone on board was thrown to the ceiling by the sudden nosedive. Okay, so I guess it just pitched its nose down pretty hardcore. Oh my god. I shouldn't be laughing at people who've got spinal injuries, but there's no... I'm looking at a picture. If you're watching the video version of this, you'll see it on YouTube. If you're listening to the audio, basically, it's, those where the masks come down from and the little heating controls are above your seat in a plane. There are some substantial large holes in that, which I can only assume is where people without their seatbelts on, suddenly they were thrown out of their seats and their heads just went into there and cracked it open, which, I mean, that is going to hurt. In the introduction, and I'll say this is great for my printer ink situation. In the introduction, I already talked a bit about the Mario 64 instance. The cause seemed to have been a bit flip in Mario's position. Using various software tools in an emulator, someone was able to determine that a single change from a 1 to a 0 would have caused the exact behavior that was seen in this inexplicable video. Another unexplained phenomena from speedrunning comes from Contra on the NES. The then world record holder was attempting to further improve his time when something strange happened. Halfway through the first level, the end level music played and his character walked forward into a pit and died. When he respawned, he was in level 2. Much like with Mario 64, the person playing had no idea what happened or why, and it has never been replicated since. While it has not yet been confirmed, this could have been another instance where a single flipped bit in the position of the character caused wildly unexpected results. I remember watching a video about these, actually. I'm just remembering it now. I can't believe it hasn't occurred to me before. There was a video where people were trying to hack something. Maybe it was those Apple AirTags or something. And one of the ways that they do this at advanced hacking isn't just in the software like regular. They try and get the computer to have errors like this because sometimes they lead to interesting things. And they're just, I don't think they were bombarding it with radiation. They were just zapping it with electricity, hoping that it would screw up and then testing it. So the computer would have this thing to try and, penetrate it or whatever they call it in these fancy technical terms. And then they'd be zapping it with electricity, testing. And eventually the electricity would, damage it in such a way that they'd be able to do what they wanted. And then they could remember how they did it or something, remember how to apply that electricity and do something like this. And I'm until I saw that video, I was like, whoa, hacking's crazy. I just thought it was people with in a room using a keyboard. But no, there's this whole hardware external hacking thing. Wrap up. Obviously, this episode of Decoding the Unknown has been a bit different than our standard fare.
I'm lost.
Normally, we focus on unsolved mysteries, analyze all the information available, and try to figure out the most likely explanation. This time, however, we've looked at a series of strange phenomena, all with the same uncontrollable cause. In this instance, the mystery isn't in the past, it's in the future. It is not the what or the how that isn't the unknown, it's the what's next. We know that strange cosmic rays have the ability to affect electronics here on Earth, and they do it on a daily basis. While it is generally only a single soft error occurring at a time, the effects can be massive, or they can be tiny. Depending on your age, you've likely experienced it hundreds if not thousands of times in your own life and never even known it. We never know what will happen or what unexpected behavior will will result from it, but we know it's going to keep happening, and there is little, if anything, we can do to stop it. I have to say, I'm kind of relieved by this. You know, sometimes where you're just using your computer and it's just like around for no reason. Now I'm going to blame space radiation. This is great. It's like, why are you doing this, computer? What happened? Why'd you crash? Why'd you just not work suddenly? I'm going to be like, space radiation, isn't it? Brilliant. You're probably familiar with Moore's Law, named after the co-founder of Intel, Gordon Moore. I am familiar with Moore's Law, the rule that the number of circuits on a circuit board or whatever, the things I was trying to think of earlier, doubles every 18 months. I had no idea that Gordon Moore was the co-founder of Intel. Holy shit. Moore's Law is the observation that the number of that worked out well for him.
He's very rich.
The number of transistors, there we go, in dense integrated circuits doubles about every 2 years. Most people simply simplify this to state the technology doubles every 2 years, though it would be more accurate to say that processing power rather than technology does. Yeah, otherwise we'd have really good iPhones. Like, you look at the original iPhone, it's like, okay, and you look at the current iPhone, obviously the new one is massively better. But it hasn't doubled every 2 years, has it? Because then it would be like, how many years has it been? 12 years since that new iPhone? So 2, 4, 8. Is it threefold better? Yeah, maybe it is. I don't know. Technology is confusing. While Moore's Law has outlived whatever, if any, usefulness it had, the fact is that circuits have gotten exponentially dense since the disturbances of cosmic rays on computing were first discovered back in 1979. Better designs and error-checking techniques have helped to limit the effects of cosmic rays. That's all well and good until planes start dropping out of the sky. To that end, in December 2007, Intel was awarded a patent for a cosmic ray detector that would be built into memory chips, though this is something that's not taking place yet. Yeah, but what if one of the cosmic rays hits the cosmic ray detector? Did you think of that, Intel? They almost certainly did, because it's the first thing I thought of when thinking of this, and they absolutely considered it, because they're Intel. So what do you think? Is Intel correct in thinking that we're on borrowed time and that computer crashes are only going to become a bigger problem as processors continue to advance? Will our ability to make sophisticated error-correcting algorithms and technologies outpace our need to do so? And the next time cosmic rays interfere with computers in a way that is significant enough to be world news, will it be a quirky story like the Belgian election, or a cautionary tale like Qantas Flight 72, or will it be something much worse? Bonus facts. Remember earlier in the episode when I said that I wasn't going to go into technical scientific detail? Oh, yes I do, and I was happy. Well, I decided to do an experiment instead. Simon, feel free to do your outro if you want before the bonus facts, and you can use those sweet, sweet watch time analytics to see if anyone cared to consume this part. Okay. And let's see how absolutely lost I get. I'm not going to do an intro because lately I've just been not doing intros on any of my channels because I'm kind of like they're pointless. What do I say? Click the like button, subscribe. It's like, yo, if you like the video, you already clicked it. And if you're subscribes don't even matter anymore. Who cares? Let's carry on. Number 1. In 1978, the Intel RAM chip stored zeros and ones as either the presence or absence of electrons in a semiconductor well. The presence meant 0 and the absence meant 1, although I'm curious why it wasn't the other way around. Yes, the alpha particles emitted by the uranium were energetic and ionizing enough to create electron-hole pairs through the silicon of the chip. If an alpha particle struck in the right place, it could create a large number of free charge carriers, causing electrons to fill the semiconductor well and flip a 1 to a 0. So far, I understand. They could not flip a 0 to a 1, though, because they can't take it out. They can only put it in. I'm following along. Big brain. Though either by changes in how processors are designed or the more diverse spectrum of particles bombarding our computers, a bit flip can now go either way. We already referred to these as soft errors, but this type is referred to as a single event upset because only a single bit was flipped. Okay, I don't understand how it works the other way. But let's move on to number 2. When cosmic rays enter the magnetosphere, they collide with atoms and molecules, mainly oxygen and nitrogen. This collision results in many energetic pions, kaons, and baryons. Pions and kaons are not stable, so they quickly decay into other particles, including X-rays, muons, neutrinos, protons, antiprotons, alpha particles, electrons, positrons, and neutrons. The process is referred to as an air shower, as the cosmic rays are causing this myriad of subatomic particles to shower down onto the Earth. Many of these particles decay or combine with other particles in the atmosphere long before they reach the surface of the Earth. Some particles, such as muons and neutrinos, are so small that they'll simply pass right through anything and come out the other side of the planet, going on their merry way. On average, 1 million muons will pass through your body every night, while 100 trillion neutrinos pass through your body every second. Oh my god, science is crazy. It is the charged particles from this shower, predominantly alpha particles, that are cause of the soft errors we discussed in today's episode, and why I chose to simplify it and just say cosmic rays. Thank you for simplifying it, Kevin. I appreciate it. And thank you so much for listening. I'm not going to do an outro because I said they were pointless, didn't I? Bye.